While we explored what nVidia and Intel did in years 2006 and 7, we didn't pay much attention to what AMD and its recent purchase ATI were doing. Fun fact, ATI released 2 graphics card generations 2007, aiming to bite part of the market from nVidia and their excellent 8000 series. AMD also had another first in 2007, as they launched their first quad cores from the Phantom series. Here, we decided to pay tribute to everyone's favorite outsider, although they might not be one anymore today, with an AMD 2007 high-end gaming PC build. Let's clarify that this is not a high-end yearly build, but an almost all AMD high-end yearly build. We expect the performance of this build to be in the ballpark of the 2007 Intel plus nVidia mid-range we already covered, somewhat lower than that. While that sounds a bit low, it's interesting to see what the alternative was back then. And to see, did AMD pack a punch as well? Just one of lesser magnitude. We usually start our build with our motherboard choice, but here we'll start with the CPU and graphics card, as that's the premise of this build. For the ultimate 2007 AMD CPU, we would have chosen something from the aforementioned Phantom CPUs. Most likely Phantom X4 9600, 2.3 GHz quad-core. Instead, we opted for Athlon 64X2 6400 Plus, for its much higher single-core clock at 3.2 GHz, and thus much better gaming performance. It's still a multi-core CPU, with 2 cores and 2 threads with 1 MB of L2 cache per core. It looks fine by itself, the question is how it stands its ground against the competition. For graphics card, we went with the obvious choice. Radeon HD 3870 is the second flagship ATI released in 2007. Third if you would count AGP versions of X9050 cards. Armed with RV670 XT Terascale GPU, has 512 MB of GDDR4 memory connected via 256-bit bus width. On paper, HD 3870 seemed like it should beat nVidia's GeForce 8800 GT. We will see how that panned out. If we were to make this ultimate AMD gaming PC build from 2007, we would need another one to run it in Crossfire, and the board to support it. Speaking of the devil, for the motherboard, we need the best possible one we can get with M2 socket and PCI Express. Here we have 2 possible options, both from Asus and both from 2006. Of course, there are many others we could use as well, but this is what we have in our inventory. Asus M2V with VIA K8M890 chipset and Asus M2N SLI Deluxe with nVidia Enforce 570 SLI chipset. It's a damn shame that we don't have some period specific high-end AMD chipset motherboard, just to go all AMD. M2E is one good board, but even from bird's eye view, it's obvious that M2N SLI is a better fit for what we're trying to accomplish here. The weird thing here is that if we go down that route, we're effectively using an nVidia product in our AMD build. But fret not, today's bitter rivals worked together quite splendidly back then, and nVidia provided some excellent chipsets for the AMD platform. Also, the Enforce chipset is no way limiting performance of our HD 3870, and this motherboard and graphics card got along just fine, which can be said for some other cards. So the choice is made, we're going with Asus M2N SLI Deluxe. Our 4x2GB of DDR2 Geil Black Dragon 800MHz CL4 memory served us well in the Ultimate 2006 build, and we aim to use it in this build as well. Funny enough, back then green and black were more of AMD's colors rather than red. It was ATI who was adorned in the scarlet shade, but in the eyes of the dragon, you can see what's yet to come. A tad funny coincidence. Let me stress that we are perfectly aware that SSDs were not widely available back in 2007, but we used them to get better system stability for our testing. We are aware that many of you want to see some period-specific spinning boys still, well, spinning, if nothing, then for pure nostalgia's sake. And we'll try to oblige in future projects, but here we'll use the same setup we used in 2007 mid-range video. As for data accuracy, fret not. The Impact 10 SSD has on benchmark results is either minimal or non-existent. Here we are using Be Quiet 600 watts SFX power supply, known to be reliable and currently available to use right now. Not in the same magnitude as HDDs, but PCUs age badly, possibly to more tragic and disastrous outcomes. So we just used newer ones that have connectors and voltages necessary to support our system. Here is our final list of parts, followed by the parts list for our 2007 mid-range and 2006 Ultimate Gaming PC. We will use these systems as references in benchmark results. And the time has come to build this thing. Oops, this thermal paste tube is finally empty. Let's bring another one. Time to start this machine. And as you can see in the background, it is alive. Let's start our benchmark roundup with Far Cry. Our AMD build here held well, trailing 20 to 25%, all up until the very high 1080p preset, where it tanked terribly, lingering in barely playable territory. Trailing continues, this time consistently in Fear. As we go with higher presets, the percentage gap widens. Still, on every preset, game worked great and was very playable. In Oblivion we got acceptable averages, but 1% lows were noticeably lower. Some stutter was observable on the ultra high preset. Other than that, this system tackled the Elder Scrolls 4 without any issues. Compared to reference systems, it was significantly slower, with the gap being narrower on medium preset. For Crysis, we used gameplay instead of going for built-in benchmark, as we have comparable data from our previous projects. 2007 AMD high-end held up pretty well, the only outlier being a bit of stutter on the medium preset. Very high 1080p is of course unplayable, the same as it is on reference machines. Hard reset on 2007 AMD build was a stuttery experience. While averages trailed consistently, you can see that 1% lows are too low, even on the low preset. Bethesda games are simultaneously great and terrible benchmarks. Who can decipher what is going on here? As AMD high-end matches 2007 nVidia Intel mid-range performance on the very low preset, falls a lot on the medium preset and then beats 2007 mid-range on the ultra-high preset. While 1% lows were low on the medium, the game didn't stutter, just had sequences of low performance. It's hard to determine from this data where the bottleneck for our AMD system lie. Is it CPU? Is it GPU? Or perhaps GPU drivers? To eliminate at least one variable, we try testing our system with GeForce 8800 GT, but weirdly enough, it doesn't work with this board. For whatever reason, our ATI card worked flawlessly with our nVidia chipset motherboard, but our actually good nVidia card simply gave us no display. We also tested various cards from the same nVidia generation, and we got similar results. No data here then. Moving on. At this point, we will, as we always do, introduce a small upgrade to this machine, which is sadly not an AMD product, but is great at comparing performance between the machines, as we already have the results. It's a regular upgrade, nVidia GeForce GTX 750, with the exact same graphics card upgrade in both 2007 AMD and 2007 mid-range system. Now it's comparison of platforms. Let's see how they stand. First, we return to the Skyrim, with performance results of the upgraded systems. Here we get the first observable victory of our AMD system, especially considering the 1% low results. You can notice some degradation at the low preset averages on both machines due to extra driver overhead on the CPU from our GTX 750 driver. If you want to learn more about this issue, we'll add links to the excellent hardware unboxed videos on that topic. For this exact reason, we will cease using it as an upgrade after this project. The next game is unplayable with the old graphics card, as it requires DirectX 11. It's Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt. Performance is comparable to our 2007 mid-range champion, but this game is playable on neither of these machines. In 2016 Doom, performance is once again similar to our 2007 mid-range, but the 2007 AMD build gets much better marks on the Ultra preset. We also ran some synthetic benchmarks, which are various 3D marked CPU-Z and Cinebench. Here are the results for those benchmarks. Considering the results with GTX 750, it seems that the HD 3870 was pulling us down. Probably due to suboptimal drivers, as AMD drivers really weren't up to snuff back then. You may wonder why we compare AMD high-end to Intel nVidia mid-range from the same year. One aspect of it is, of course, performance. The other was the price, as this build was in the same price range as the mid-range build, sometimes even cheaper. This is the result of good competition on the market, blurred lines between high-end and mid-range build, regardless of the manufacturer of the parts. And this is what made this build a good purchase as well. Overall, 2007 was a great year for PC gaming. And with this video, we conclude this 2006-2007 build series. An important disclaimer is that you should take this data with a grain of salt, as silicon variance, the state of our parts, or something we missed could have had an impact on the results. We're very confident that the data isn't misleading, and we did as good job as we could. We're by no means professionals, but enthusiasts who just do this for fun. Also, we're always open to suggestions. If you feel that something could have been done differently, or have a correction, express yourself in the comments. But we ask you to do it in a civilized manner, which is respectful to us, and more importantly respectful to the other members of the audience. Thank you. We aim to improve our videos over time, to make them more informative, more accurate, and most importantly, more fun. Hope you found this video and this video series fun. We sure did. Have a nice day and see you around.